thumb. Guys ready?
Sure.
All right. Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular board meeting for Monday, December 12th, 2022. I'd ask that all those present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have our clerk is asked to be excused. Before we proceed, I'd be looking for a motion to appoint Terry Selgott as the acting secretary or clerk for the meeting due to Mr. Witt's excused absence.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mrs. Rose. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of November 28th, 2022, approval of the special meeting minutes of December 5th, 2022, approval of the workshop minutes of December 5th, 2022, approval of the bills in the amount of $916,100.17, approval of the 2022 budget amendments, approval of the ESO annual subscription renewal, and approval of the winter property tax bill printing and postage. Unless there's any changes, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right, motion by Mr. Badkins. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Tominello. We'll get you one of these times. All right, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is item B, approval of the regular agenda. Board members, I'm not aware of any amendments to the agenda. If there are none, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Olgiati. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Brock. See, we get you eventually. Good. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on our agenda is announcements, brief announcements. The township offices will be closed December 23rd through January 2nd in observation of the Christmas and New Year holiday. Our offices will reopen 8 a.m. January 3rd. Our Harrison Township firefighters are accepting donations for their virtual giving tree for a couple more days. They are helping over a dozen Harrison Township families this season. Please visit their Facebook page, Harrison Township Firefighters Local 1737, for more information and details on how to donate. Our Harrison Township Library will be hosting their last Tales with Tales for the year this Wednesday, December 14th at 5 p.m. You can contact the library to sign up, have your children practice their reading with their dog. Tales with Tales will resume in the new year. The library has already planned many fun and educational activities for residents in the upcoming new year. For more information on these and other great community events, visit their website at htlibrary.org. You can call them 586-329-1261 or email them at librarian@htlibrary.org. Our Harrison Township Senior Center has many great activities. The Senior Center features chair yoga Tuesdays and Fridays at 1 p.m. for seniors to increase their strength and flexibility, as well as an aerobics strength class Mondays at 1 p.m. and Fridays at 9:30 a.m. The Senior Center also hosts bingo every Wednesday at noon and euchre every Thursday at noon. They also have many field trips planned throughout the year, so for more information on times and events, call Jen, our coordinator, 586-466-1497. For more information on these, as well as all other township events, you can call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Visit our website, www.harrison-township.org, or follow us on Twitter at HarrisonTWPMI. Any board announcements?
Yes, I do have one from the treasurer's office. So although the township offices will be closed between the Christmas and New Year's holiday, the treasurer's office will be open on Thursday, December 29th, from 8 a.m. to 4:30 to take any type of payments or sell the Harrison Township Metro Beach Metro passes.
All right. Any other board announcements?
The Beautification Commission and myself we are handing out awards to the Clark Griswolds of the community that have gone over and above decorating their houses for Christmas. So we're starting that now. So, if you see anybody in your yard handing out or walking up and down your sidewalk, it's probably one of us.
That's right, I saw some social media posts, that's a great idea. I'm amazed at the positive responses we've gotten when folks are recognized for their gardening, great gardening. I mean, just people are really, really passionate about that.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome, and it's a great idea, so good for that. Anything else?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Batkins and the rest of the Parks and Rec Committee for putting on a great tree lighting and Santa visit ceremony. The library did a fantastic job having some activities. L'Anse Creuse High School Choir was here, the L'Anse Creuse High School Band was here, Santa was here, the firefighters pitched in by driving. I mean, it was really a whole community event. We had a fabulous turnout, so we're back in person, so I'm loving that.
Yeah, and the firefighters also watched the reindeer while Santa was here, so that was very nice of them.
Nice, yes.
So,
And the beautification committee was there too to hand out cookies and hot cocoa, so
yep, great
just
event.
got everybody all in one night. So
Absolutely. We
great
had some
event.
very positive feedback on that event as well,
Yeah.
so it's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Sure.
All right, we do have the pleasure of having our county commissioner, Mrs. Barbara Zinner, here, and so she's going to give us a brief update.
Is the mic working now? Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's very great to be here. Thank you. It's all decorated and pretty and nice. I was able to attend the firefighters when Santa was at their building.
Donuts with Santa.
I'm sorry?
Donuts with Santa?
Lots of donuts.
Yeah.
Lots of children, happy children, and it was so decorated. I would have never been at the North Pole with Santa, but I would imagine that's what it would look like. It was that wonderful. And lots of people. I only got to be there for an hour, but I guess it was that way all morning, and oh gosh, it was just wonderful. First of all, Merry Christmas and Blessed Christmas to everyone. But there is something I wanted to mention. The executive, a few weeks ago, brought in a police group, had their name as I was walking in here, and now I forgot. There's a group from Genesee County that has been working with, and I hate to bring this up at Christmas time or any time, but it's really critical that people be aware of this. Parents especially, grandparents. Our country is number one with predators with children 12, 13, and 14 years old, and older also. But Genesee County has a group that is set with this. I mean, they really are strategic with this. They've been, I think, following this for about 5 years. And these people, this particular group of people, are very subtle, of course. And children, I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of children in the United States that are in these situations. They're not just runaways. They're children that are living in our homes. Macomb County is affected. An example was they had a piece of information, very small, blurred, and they're so tenacious. 13 days later, they were pulling this girl out of her home across the country with the help of 2 other police agencies. It was amazing that they could figure this out, but that's what they do. And when they found that from somebody, other child's, helping one other child, because usually these people are working on 12 children at a time. So another situation was a father and a mother, 2 children, happy family, did a lot of things together. The father noticed his daughter, something wasn't right. And he said to her, What's wrong? She said, oh, nothing. Fine. A couple days later, he said, no, something's wrong. And she said, no, Dad, I'm fine. But he knew something wasn't right. So he picked up her phone and looked, and he saw nothing. But he took the phone to the police, and they found it. Now, a lot of kids, they also got the guy. A lot of kids, and what they'll do is they'll have them take a particular picture of themselves, then they've got them. Because they say, well, do what I want you to do, continue talking to me, or else I'll send the picture to your parents. So these kids are caught then. So anyway, I'm not saying it's all the kids, of course, but, and teenagers are moody and whatever, we all were there. But we have to be aware that these things are happening, and it's happening at lightning speed. The United States is #1 with this problem in the world. So parents, just be aware. You have to take the time to look at the phone and just watch your children's moods, because it probably may not get better until who knows when, and I hope it would be quickly. But it's important, we have to protect our children. Thank you very much, and it's good to see everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, for sure, we're appreciative of the efforts of our Macomb County Sheriff's Office and Executive's Office to try to, just, you can't stop this stuff. When we had issues at Tucker Park, they said you just have to you just try to keep up with it. You can't fix it, but you gotta be vigilant, so thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda, it would be resolutions. We do have a resolution urging Oakland County to reduce combined sewer overflows and discharges into Macomb County. To support the Lake St. Clair Water Basin, Save Lake St. Clair, the Macomb County Public Works Commissioner, and all the people affected by the sewage dumping from Oakland County, Trustee Badkins is proposing that we issue a resolution to the Water Resources Commissioner, Mr. Jim Nash, in Oakland County, in hopes that he can address the issues that continue to exist in the dumping of treated and untreated sewage. So Mr. Badkins has recommended that the Board of Trustees adopt the resolution urging Oakland County to reduce combined sewer overflows and discharges into Macomb County. The resolution is in your board packet. Mr. Badkins, I don't know if there's anything you wish to share, or if you'd like to read the resolution, or any discussion.
Well, I do just have a couple other things. I've spent a little time on this, and back on October 27th, Commissioner Nash wrote a response to our county commissioners regarding the resolution that our county commissioners had passed. And I am going to just sort of read some of the excerpts from it. And I believe that this letter, this response to the commissioners, generated a letter from Candace Miller on November 17th. I believe we all got a copy of that. And which in turn sparked another response from Mr. Nash. But I'll just read a couple things from the October 27th letter that I think sparked some of the things that Candace Miller had addressed. This was from his letter. I'm in response of a letter received from the commissioners of Macomb County showing, if you're aware, Candace Miller, again, Candace issued this letter where it stated Ms. Miller had not shown or proved any dumping was harmful to the environment. Where I, in my mind, say, I'm not a biologist or an environmentalist, but last time I saw dumping from Oakland County, there was toilet paper hanging in the Red River drain. Mr. Nash, in the October 27th letter, in response to the resolution urging Oakland County and the state to reduce sewage dumping, where he denied no wrongdoing in contributing to Lake St. Clair's water quality issue. He goes on in his letter to state, and this is all available on the WRC site, he goes on his letter to state that billions of gallons of discharged sewage has no correlation between the discharge and the Lake St. Clair algae problems or closing of the beach. He also stated state and federal agencies determined the discharge had nothing to do with any beach closings. So this resolution is addressed to Mr. Nash and all the commissioners from the Water Resource Commission. Now, I did some quick math, and just, if you'll bear with me for just another minute here. If 1 billion gallons of sewage was discharged into the Lake St. Clair is approximately 275,000 acres. Oakland County has 358 lakes. Two of the largest lakes in Oakland County are Cass Lake and Kent Lake. Between them, they're about 2,480 acres. If you take the 1 billion gallons, just one, and he said multiple billions, 1% is 10 million gallons. I almost guarantee you, if we dump 10 million gallons into Cass Lake and Kent Lake, they would figure out a way to quit dumping. So, this has been going back and forth for many, many years, even before I joined the board and when I first got on the board, and I think one of the residents always mentioned Save Lake St. Clair. Several people that are taking part of that have tried desperately. Now, in all fairness, I will say that it appears that from a technical standpoint, what's allowed by the federal and the state and Eagle and all of that stuff, that Oakland County has improved. But it's still happening. It's still happening today. And I believe that that's what Candace Miller's letter and resolution, if you caught the paper the other day, the mayor of Warren even issued a resolution. That's what sort of prompted that, we put this in front of their commissioners over there. I'm guessing we'll get a response, but it'll be something similar to the response we received from Commissioner Nash in response to Candace Miller's letter. So I know that there's a lot of people trying hard, but I thought that this board could adopt this resolution, and I can certainly read it, but I know that you guys have it. If you'd like me to read it, I can, but that's what I'm asking tonight, that we all support this resolution.
It's nice to see that people are starting to finally get a little traction to the Warrens, jumping on a note. After I read the response back from the drain commissioner from Oakland, I thought it was, whatever it was.
It was snarky. That's the term I would use. It was kind of, it's kind of like saying, well, it's really no big deal. Like, really? I mean, so why have you guys invested millions and millions of dollars prior to this to get to where we are today? We've made progress. It's good, but we're not done.
Well, it was interesting though, because Candace was on Paul W. Smith with a response earlier in the week, so it was interesting. You might want to pick it up on a podcast or something along that line, but it was an interesting segment. So
Agreed. I don't think we need to read the resolution. It is a part of the minutes. I noticed there are a couple little things. There is one line, whereas the Charter Township of Harrison has spent millions of dollars, it should say on sanitary sewers or constructing sanitary sewers. And I know the actual motion by and second was a copy and paste. And I know that we can correct that, but clearly the body of the resolution is reflective of presumably some information you might have received from Public Works Office. And, again, we're to your point, Mr. Olgiati, we're trying to draw attention to this. It is better than it used to be, and that's good. That's good. And folks in Oakland County have invested significant funds to get to where we are now. The difference, though, is it appears that maybe some folks there think they're done, and some folks over this end of the run believe that there's still more work to be done. So I think this resolution helps to draw that attention, and so I support it. Any other discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll be more than happy to make that motion to adopt Mr. Backen's resolutions for the letter to Oakland County Drain Supervisor Nash.
And again, with some minor meaningless corrections.
Exactly.
Yep.
I'll support that.
Support. Motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Brado.
I'd like to add that I would love to be able to add a financial disclaimer to that we would charge them every time they dumped into our lake, but I know we can't do that. But
Well, the
love to
irony
do
of
that.
all this
Fine
is,
them.
the irony of all this is, your sewer rates, the rate that we all pay for our sewer is completely and totally traceable and related to the fact that we send it to Great Lakes Water Authority through our Macomb district, and they charge us for the flows that we give them. Every time there's a wet weather event, these Oakland County communities are just sending it down the red run. It's not being processed, but the residents of Oakland County are paying for a processing rate. So in essence, why not? Hey, just send it down the river. I don't have to pay a dime for it to go down the river, but I get to charge the residents the fee to process their sewage. It's broken. I will say, I feel like Commissioner Nash's letter acknowledged that there's a need for to form a committee and to work on a solution. And so I'm a little bit encouraged by that, but I do think drawing attention to this is the kind of thing you need to build momentum, and this I think helps. So, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll open the floor for public comment.
C. William Barrell, 26-year resident. I guess it's better late than never. I've been talking about this for, I know I brought Mr. Gutlow in here and asked you guys for a resolution six years ago. And, Ken, you had one heck of a Ralph Cramden homina imitation, and it was pretty good with the homina. So I'm glad to see something, 6 years later. And I heard about this last week. And it's funny how the red team always jumps on the bandwagon afterwards. And then you hear, oh, Candace this, Candace that. Why didn't Candace submit the letter first? Why did the Board of Commissioners have to do it first? Yeah, this is easy to pile on later on, but better late than never. Like I said, easy to pile on later on, but I thought Candace would have led the charge. No, she didn't lead the charge. She puts the 2 cents in after the fact, and I noticed that. I track everything. I've been involved with Lake St. Clair when they had 3,000 members. Got over 70,000 members approximately now. Like, I have to check me on that. But it was 3,000 members when I joined. And nobody had any moxie to get off the couch. So 6 years later, I'm glad something being done, and we can pile on now. But I'd also like to see something where when they do dump, if and when they do, which they will, that we do fine them. I know there's a lot of shameful things going on in this township with the blight. And I know Mr. Fouts, he fights blight and Warren. He's one of my heroes, a best friend of mine, not only because he's a Frank Sinatra fan, because he hates blight. And he's a good friend of mine. So it's going to always be after the commissioner and after Fouts. But congratulations on something. Something's better than nothing. I always look for the Cinderella story. So with everything going on, this is something positive. I know we've got an applicant in here that wants to put in condos in a neighborhood he says is a ghetto. People park on their lawn, and so I guess this is something positive in the township. So I hope we follow through with it. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
I want to add to the conversation in this area, please. We were able to pass that on the board, and recently, in fact, we had to put it under a committee, and Candace was where we put that. She offered to take that under her committee, which was appropriate. So I was the author of that resolution. So, Mr. Nash, we want to have a meeting with several areas, several leaders. And I think that cohesiveness will be very helpful. I'm happy you're doing this. I didn't realize you were doing this tonight. But Mr. Nash called me recently and asked me if I'd like to come and see the GWF building, the treatment center. And I said, well, yes. And I said, can the other board members come? He said, yes, bring whoever wants to come. So the chair and I and another commissioner went, and I really thought it was, I like to see it. I thought it would be great to see. I had never seen it before, as I said. It was very interesting, and I know they have a, underneath the ground there, they have a whole setup too. But we had questions for him, and of course, the overflow comes when there's a large rain, a real bad rain. That's when we have the problem. Last year, I think he had 3, which is a light summer for us to get water. So all that dryness was good. And Doug Martz, who's been fighting this for 30 years, he hasn't been doing that much recently, said 1 billion gallons will wreck our water for a season with the E. coli and everything else. So, and Candace says the same thing. And you know, Candace and Doug, Doug has been after this forever, they have to separate the rainwater from the sewage. So I mentioned this because we were having discussion of what should be done. And I mentioned that. And he's an absolute no on that. And I said, he said, well, no, because there's too much rainwater will bring debris down. And I said, well, can't you put filters in that? And I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. He said, well, nobody in the world does that, nobody in our country. And I'm thinking, this is the United States of America. Can't we put a filter at the end? I didn't go into it, but I'm thinking, I think we could figure it out. So anyway, one of the other commissioners said, so what are you going to do to stop the overflows? 3 times he was asked that, and he never answered. So that's the big concern here. You have retention ponds, do whatever you have to do, but keep that water somewhere so that you have a way to keep it from coming down. And we're not so perfect here either. We have areas that we have to work on too. But we don't have 1 billion gallons of water coming down and going someplace else. And that's the key point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment. I appreciate the comments from the residents. I would take exception to the fact that I'm sorry? Yeah, did you wish to make public comment?
Well, I do regarding the development and the
Yep, explanation, because not everybody comes to the meetings all the time, and I understand. So when we make a motion, we accept public comment about whatever that motion is. So like, for example, we're discussing right now a resolution. So public comment would be specific to this resolution. Later in the agenda, there is a discussion regarding conditional rezoning. So we'll open up, assuming that the board makes a motion, we'll open up the floor at that time for public comment about each item. So, so I should say, we accept public comment about any item we're gonna vote on before we vote on it. And then at the end of the meeting, we accept public comment about any subject. So if you wish to comment about the rezoning, it would be appropriate that you might talk about that coming up, so. Anyways, so I appreciate the public comment. I would take exception to the fact that, that Commissioner Miller is late to the party. I mean, she's altered her path in DC to come back to specifically fight for water quality. She's reached a point in her career where I'm guessing she could probably be retired right now, but she's the one person who was in a position to, probably defeat someone who might still be in office today had she not run, and I think since day one, she's been working on water quality, so I definitely take exception to the notion that somehow she's late to the party. I don't think anybody except the resident believes that. Any other discussion, board members? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Brado to adopt the resolution regarding urging Oakland County to reduce combined sewer overflows and discharges into Macomb County. Will the acting clerk please take the roll call?
Mr. Badkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, excused. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. Thank you. Next on our agenda is another resolution regarding Mr. Bruce Meek. Board members, Mr. Bruce Meek was appointed to the DDA Board, our Downtown Development Authority, at the very formation and beginning of the DDA. He has served our community very well, has recently requested to resign. It would be appropriate to approve of a resolution to acknowledge his service to our community at this time. Board members, in the packet is a resolution acknowledging the service that Mr. Meek has provided and thanking him for that service. I'd be looking for a motion to adopt that resolution.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose to adopt the resolution honoring Mr. Bruce Meek. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, this would require a roll call. So I'll ask the acting clerk to take the roll call.
Mr. Badkins,
Yes.
Mr. Brado,
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati,
Yes.
Mrs. Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Tominello.
Yes.
Mr. Witt excused, Mr. Verkest.
Yes, thank you. All right, next on our agenda is a public hearing regarding special assessment district. Board members, at our September 26, 2022 board meeting, resolution number 4 was adopted, which set the date for a public hearing of necessity, known as the second public hearing. The notice for the public hearing was published twice in the Journal. The notice was sent to each title owner or party in interest of property to be assessed, whose name appears upon the last local tax assessment records by first-class mail, addressed to such owner or party at the address shown on said tax records before the date of such hearing. Today's hearing is for individuals to speak specifically to the assessment roll. So at this time, I believe it would be appropriate to make a motion to open public hearing number 2.
So moved.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominello. Is there support?
Support.
A motion supported by Mr. Badkins. This specifically, we're just voting to open the public hearing. Is there any discussion on the motion to open the public hearing? Is the public comments about the motion, or once we pass the motion, then we'll open? Okay, good. So I'll treat that as a no public comment for the specific vote. And so at this time, any discussion? Hearing none, will the acting clerk please take the roll call to open public hearing number 2?
Mr. Badkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado,
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello.
Yes.
Mr. Witt excused, Mr. Verkest.
Yes. So at this time, the public hearing regarding this special assessment is open. Anyone from the public who wishes to comment, the floor is open.
Good evening, thank you. My name's Mark Manor. I live on West Archer Drive. Resided there for approximately 17 years. I want to object to the special assessment for the following reasons. There is no finding that the purpose and scope of the proposed district is necessary. There's not a weed problem in that canal. There hasn't been in the 17 years that I've been there. There is no increase in real property market values as required by or the benefit of the properties at issue with improvements that is proportional to the cost of the. In order to approve the special assessment district, there has to be an increase in the marketable value of the real property. The weed treatment is not going to change the market value. If it changes it at all, it's not proportional to the cost of the weed treatment itself. The special assessment district, as described, is misleading. The special assessment district is described in terms of addresses on West Archer, Venetian, and includes 31960 Riverdale. Special assessment district includes property on South River Road, but that is not included in the description of the district itself. The petitions themselves are defective in that they do not all contain the printed name of the individual collecting the signatures, and thus the petitions themselves are defective. And the petitions cover a wide length of time. If you look at the dates of them, they begin in February. I think the last one is August. there's an opportunity for significant changes in owners as required by MCL 41-721A. The record owner is not based upon the tax bills. The record owner has to be determined in accordance with the county register of the office. I'd like to present these written objections to your court.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Any other public comment? Finally, is there any other public comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to close the public hearing for resolution number 2 at 7:38 PM.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
We got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Badkins to close public hearing number 2. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in, oh, I'm sorry, requires a roll call vote.
Oh.
Sorry.
Mr. Badkin?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt excused. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. So I can, the special assessment is typically something handled by the clerk's office. Mr. Witt did have a family event, that, he, wanted to attend this evening. So I did ask him about this particular resolution. In September, we were accepting public comment and making the discussion to move forward with the special assessment. Tonight's vote is specifically about whether the roll is accurate. In other words, maybe I say, I do own this land, I do not own this land. But back in September, the board did move forward with a special assessment based on the notion that a majority of the people affected by this special assessment did sign and request to participate in this. So this isn't something that we generate, this isn't something that we're making a decision on. We're not the lead person on this. A majority of the people affected by this weed treatment said, yes, we want to participate. I believe it's about $60 annually. And we have been doing this now. I believe we're in we've completed our 6th year of treatment. We had a 5-year contract, and if I remember correctly, so now we're 1 year into the next 5-year contract. I could be off on that, but it's largely been materially silent. We haven't had a lot of issues or complaints. I recognize and respect the residents' concerns, but we're doing what a majority of folks in that neighborhood have asked us to do. We just play a role in it because through the special assessment district process, if there is perceived to be a benefit, then we have the ability to make sure that everybody participates equally. So I don't know if there's any other board discussion. If not, we'd be moving forward to the resolution, resolution number 5. The next step is, in this process, is resolution number 5 for the Huron Point Weed Control Special Assessment District, which adopts the assessment roll as it is presented and directs the treasurer to collect the costs as laid out. There is no spreading of this payment or financing interest as the full cost is billed and due annually, primarily because the cost per home is pretty low. The project calls for the canals in the Huron Point subdivision described properties along the canal side, on the east side of Venetian, on the west side of Archer Drives, as well as 31960 Riverdale to be treated for plant control with algicide and herbicide treatment in the water course of St. Clair Haven subdivision as described annually, beginning in 2023 through 2026. The townships and its agents assume no responsibility or liability for any adverse effects to individuals or property, directly or indirectly, as a result of treating the canals. The preliminary estimate to treat the canals for 2023 is $26,500, with an estimated cost per lot of $53.21. For 2024, the price is $27,295, an estimated cost per lot of $54.81. 2025, the cost for treatment is $28,090, which is an estimated cost of $56.41 per lot. And the 2026 cost is projected at $28,885, which is an estimated cost per lot of $58. The final assessed cost is based on actual and miscellaneous cost. So at this time, we'd be, unless there's any discussion, we'd be looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 5 for the Huron Point Weed Control Special Assessment District.
I just have, one question real fast, is that, because we've had these on our agenda probably 5 or 6 times in the last couple of years, that a few of us have been on the board.
Yep.
And we've never really had any type of discussion about this, because everybody seems like it's pretty much in unison in terms of what people want to do in their subdivisions, but, is there any way that when we do have these resolutions, if we have a question, that we can go to the clerk's office and get the numbers, the percentage of people that signed up wanting it, in comparison to people that did not want it, just so we have that for our own?
Yeah, so, first and foremost, absolutely, the petitions and all those are records maintained by the clerk's office, so the clerk, probably not offhand, right, but is able to say this percent of people, that's number one. Number two, the actual number of what you're talking about is a little bit elusive. If I have 100 homes in a special assessment district, if I get to a little over 50 of those homes with a yes signature, because there is no signature, right? Failure to sign just means I'm against it, I won't sign. But once I get to a simple majority, if I'm the party collecting the signatures, there's really no reason to collect. So you could have a district where 100% of the people are in favor. But if out of 100 lots, if I have 55 signatures, I'm probably pretty safe, small margin in case somebody isn't the appropriate person to sign. So we don't always know what percent of all of the neighbors or people in a district might approve of it. But once they get to a simple majority, and we don't even actually collect the signatures. So the clerk's office does prepare the petition, gives that to the residents, whoever might be leading that. Presumably in the Huron Point subdivision, there is a homeowners association, so they may have taken that lead. So originally, they circulated those petitions throughout the neighborhood, and they didn't include this segment of the neighborhood. More recently, they did collect signatures for this portion. We're 1 year into, I believe it's a 5-year contract, so this is to add them on for 4 more years. So that's kind of a summary, I guess. So the short answer, numbers are available. They may not be reflective of how many people are really supportive, because they only need a simple majority in order to bring it back to the clerk's office to move forward with the project. Any other discussion? Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 5 for the Huron Point Weed Control SAD?
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
And again, recognizing that this resolution is really adopting the role. Back in September, we did adopt, or basically approve a resolution to move forward with this project based on a majority of the folks in that district signing, saying they specifically wanted it.
In order for anything to become an SED, they have to have 51%.
Correct. Simple majority, right, correct. This isn't our decision, it's not our choice to do this, this is the ultimate in local control. This is a voting within a small, relatively small neighborhood in our community compared to the total. Any other discussion? No public comment. Seeing no public comment, be looking for the acting clerk to take a roll call for adopting resolution number 5 for the Huron Point Weed Control SAD.
Mr. Badkin?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt excused. Mr. Verkest?
Yes, thank you. Next on our agenda, item F1 regarding the budget. So board members, we did have a budget workshop. The 3 full-timers, along with our finance director, put in significant time developing our 2023 budget. The township is required by law to annually adopt a budget, and in order to do that, we must first hold a public hearing. Tonight's public hearing was noticed in advance in the Macomb Daily as required. Purpose of the public hearing is to hear comments from the residents on the proposed budget. So at this time, I would be looking for a motion to open the public hearing for the fiscal year 2023 budget at 7:47 PM.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati to open the public hearing for the 2023 budget. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, I'll be looking for the acting clerk to take the roll call to open tonight's public hearing.
Mr. Badkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, excused. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. So at this time, anyone who's present who wishes to offer public comment about the 2023 budget, the floor is open. Is there any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing no public comment, I'd be looking for a motion to close the public hearing for the 2023 budget at 7:48 PM.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
We've got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Olgiati to close the public hearing. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, actually, I don't even know if we need a roll call, but I did it anyway, so I'll ask the acting clerk to take a roll call.
Okay, hold on. Mr. Badkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, excused. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes, thank you, board. Next is item F2, adopting specifically our 2023 budget. In your board packet is the budget along with the established millage rate for 2023. I'd be looking for a motion to adopt the budget as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Support. I have a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado. Discussion on the motion.
I just wanted a point of emphasis. I think when, on the adoption of the first, the public hearing on the budget,
Yeah,
you mentioned you and the other full-timers spent a lot of time on it, and you did. You guys set the budget. We had a workshop where the trustees and finance director and everybody was engaged, so just wanted that to be known, because
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted,
and our finance director met with each of these department heads and
Yep.
kind of went through, so it's a formative process.
yes, it was quite a bit. You sort of simplified that. Yeah, I know how long it took, so I just wanted to emphasize thanks for everybody, what you did, pulling this together, and, thought the workshop was quite beneficial.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, there is a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado to adopt the 2023 budget and the established millage rate as presented. And this does require a roll call vote, so I'll ask the acting clerk to take a roll call.
Mr. Badkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, excused. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes, thank you, board. Next is item G1 from our Planning and Zoning Department, specific to conditional rezoning request. So, lots of numbers and figures here, but Holzbeek Investments LLC is requesting the conditional rezoning of property known commonly as 36727 Jefferson, property number 17-12-30-201-011, 17-12-30-201-012, 17-12-30-201-013, property also known commonly as 27041 Lance Cruz, 17-12-30-201-009, and property known as 27155 Lance Cruz, 17-12-30-201-019. These properties would be rezoned from zoning R1A and R1D to RM2 for the purpose of constructing or building 28 condos. The applicant has submitted a conditional rezoning agreement for the Board of Trustees to consider. This is the result of, I believe, 3 meetings with the Planning Commission. Planning Commission has heard the request, has reviewed the request. They had met public comment or public hearings, and the decision by the Planning Commission was to recommend that the Board of Trustees approves the conditional rezoning request. Couple things as a point of clarification. I know that there were some residents that reached out to me regarding this request with what I guess I would consider to be site-specific requests. Could they do this? Could they include that? Maybe issues relative to green space, playgrounds, those kinds of things. So first, in order to build a multifamily development, you can't build multifamily in a single-family zoning. So the first request is, hey, I want to rezone the property. The attractiveness of the conditional rezoning is that someone can't say, well, I'm asking for the property to be rezoned because I want to build A, and then once you rezone it, say, well, I decided, I changed my mind, I want to build something completely different. So these conditions are specific. If the applicant doesn't do the things that are included in the conditional rezoning, they lose the rezoning and it reverts back to single family. So it is a helpful tool because you say, well, I'll approve you to build a restaurant. And you say, well, I decided I'm going to build a topless bar. Well, wait a minute. If I knew that was your intention, I wouldn't have approved that. So the conditions are very specific and spelled out. If the board chooses to approve this, now this project begins the way any other normal project would begin. So for example, there are places in the township where we have multifamily, where we have property that's zoned multifamily. You don't need to ask for rezoning. So now you begin that process by saying, I own this property and I'm gonna go to the planning commission and propose what I wish to do on that site. And planning commission kind of has that oversight to say, well, we think you should move this building, or we think you should move this driveway, or plant more trees, or whatever that might be. If this board chooses to approve, to take the recommendation of the planning commission and approve the rezoning, now the applicant goes through the process of handling, for lack of a better word, those fine details about the site and working with the planning commission to develop a site plan and ultimately work through some of those issues relative to green space and things that are certainly important, but are ultimately not decisions that the Board of Trustees make. We're empowered to rezone property, we're not empowered to approve site plans. The board packet does spell out a lot of information, some proposals, and ultimately the conditional rezoning agreement. It's been reviewed by Mr. Huth's office.
And if I may, I just add, I spoke to the petitioner tonight. My partner, Bob Kirk, and I were chatting about this just before I left tonight. We wondered if it might make sense to add to the conditional agreement that the developer agrees not to lease to more than 6 units. There was some discussion in the Wade Trim backup material that would be part of the deal. What sometimes occurs in the communities is they have language in the final agreement about leasing, and you shouldn't lease, but the issue becomes later, who's gonna enforce that? Well, it's easy for us to enforce it if it's the developer can't do it, and if it's down the road, as Mr. Holzbecky said, it can be a part of the document so the HOA can enforce it, because we don't wanna put the township in a situation where someone leaves for 6 months, leases their place, and the neighbors come to the township and say, you're gonna be the enforcing entity for this. It's tough for a lot of reasons, not appropriate. So, if you decide to pass this, I'd ask, for you to consider that language on the.
And I guess I had thought that was already included in that proposal, and I may have misunderstood that.
Well, I think what it typically says is a broader language that they can't be leased, but if you don't have a mechanism as to who do we go to if it happens, it's hard to enforce down the road. So what I'm saying is, if it's the owner of the project, we should be able to enforce to him. He told us that he was gonna sell these as residential units, now 10 of them are being leased. That's easy fit for the township. 3 years from now, if they're all sold and 6 or 7 people are leasing them, that's a tougher role for the township to come in there and enforce. And so what I think we need to do is cue it in our office, and the petitioner said he agreed to it, that if it's not the developer, we have developer can't do it, but if it's not the developer that's leasing, the HOA should police it amongst themselves, so it's not the township on the hook for policing that, so that's just my.
So the spirit is contained in these, but in order to make enforcement easier later, we'd be saying that this conditional rezoning would include that the developer, or in his absence, the HOA, would agree to this.
Something, yeah, language to that effect, and then, I'll just make a note here and we'll flag it, if you pass this, what we should do with that.
Okay, so, again, I would say, spirit of the agreement, that's kind of what we shot for, but kind of like, hey, let's just make sure we do it in the right way so that in the future, it's not an enforcement headache,
Something, yeah.
right? And presumably the applicant, I don't know, do we need, do we need it on record that the applicant agrees with that modification? I mean, because we're modifying his conditions, I don't know if it's better that he comes to the podium and says it, I'll defer to you on that.
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, all right, good. I trust you.
I trust him, 'cause he's been around, so.
Okay, all right, good. Anything else that we need to consider there? No?
Besides, didn't he offer the suggestion?
Well, it appears
Developer?
that way, by my point, I just wasn't sure if it had to be a.
Comfortable, I am the applicant,
And I was just gonna say, if you wish to do it, maybe just approach the podium, and that way, I believe Mr. Huth, but if you're willing to say it, that's fine.
I'm Chris Holsbeck, the developer, 239 North River Road, Mount Clemens, Michigan. The developer of this proposed project. A couple of things, I did talk to Rob earlier about the concern with the rentals. And we do have an attorney draw up the bylaws for a condominium project, which we were more than happy to put this agreement in the bylaws. I've just had a mother-in-law move into a senior home community. And the first thing through our mind was, well, hey, we'll just rent her unit out to make sure this works out in case she has to come back. And it is enforced by the associations. And most associations have a management company. So it's policed pretty heavily by the management company and or the neighbors. A lot of times there's conditions with the rentals. We didn't put conditions. We said we'd rent to, I think it was maximum 6 units. And we're not looking, we would have applied for apartments if we were looking for rental units. So we are happy to put it in the bylaws. I will have our attorneys who draw up the bylaws present it to Huth or whoever needs to have it along with doing so, which I think you'd probably approve them at some point anyway.
Yeah, we should see him.
Or not approve them, whichever way you go.
Review them, yep. All right, good.
So,
So it's
I'm fine with
it's a
that.
reasonable accommodation.
yes.
All right, good, thank you. All right, any discussion, board members, or a motion? Ultimately, the motion was, kind of a lengthy document here. To approve the recommended or proposed motion is to approve the conditional rezoning of 36727 Jefferson, including several parcels, 27041 Lance Cruz, including one parcel, 27155 Lance Cruz, one parcel, from single-family R1A or R1D to RM2 per the recommendation of the Planning Commission. That is the proposed motion. So is there discussion, or is there a motion to approve this?
I guess I have a question.
Okay, so discussion.
So regarding the plan review when it comes in front of the board.
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, sorry. A lot of the things are addressed, garbage can, I know that we went through that quite extensively at Speedway. I did get an email from a resident where, traffic flow and water problems on Pontchartrain. I think the rental issue we just addressed, but that was 3 of the items. Will that be captured in that, Larry, or is that something that's not traffic patterning? I think I saw something they were gonna take away an entrance on Lance Cruz, or there was something like that.
So there's no entrance off of Jefferson into the,
Let's develop it.
yeah, so the entrance is gonna be off of, Lance Cruz and of Pontchartrain.
Okay.
So it'll be off Jefferson, and then, it'll be about 200 to 300 feet from Jefferson. There'll be entryways into the development.
Okay. And
And I believe, if I recall, because I think there was a concern about people or residents of the development turning left onto Pontchartrain or right onto Lance Cruz, and I believe the applicant also said he'd place signs saying no left turn and no right turn at the exits. So they'd have to exit out onto Jefferson.
Okay. Okay. And then, where the entrances are going, will that, if there is a drainage issue on that end, will that be addressed? I think that was one of the concerns.
So the thing with the drainage is that the developer is actually constructing a retention pond.
Yeah.
So all, any of the water runoff or any kind of, accessory water that's, either on the roads or on the private roads will be routed into the drainage pond. That may even help some of the surface, not so much the road, drainage, but maybe some of the yard, drainage, if it's sloped that way, could also possibly slope into that retention pond.
Yeah, majority of that parcel had been paved a long time back,
Yeah.
right? And so that was truly unfriendly to stormwater by today's standards. At the time, that's what we did, but this parcel is now largely vacant, or these parcels are largely vacant, so stormwater really isn't managed. This development will require a plan. Any stormwater management per state standards should result in less problems, not more problems for the neighborhood. Now, there's a separate discussion to talk about. Stormwater could be down Pontchartrain. But it wouldn't be a reason that we would say, well, because there's an existing problem with stormwater, we can't develop this. This development, the stormwater management plan to conform with ultimately the Clean Water Act is gonna require a substantial investment in stormwater management. I'm not sure about you mentioned about the left turn, right turn thing. I'm not sure that the issues related to traffic onto Pontchartrain are equal to the issues related to traffic onto Lance Cruz. Pontchartrain is by any measure a local road or a residential road. Lance Cruz is considered by the county to be something greater than a local road. So I'm not sure that I know about that, but.
Yeah, I just
right.
wanted to bring it up because.
Point is, there's
we-
further discussion about those issues.
We've asked other developers, West Marine being one, they were concerned, just for instance, that the semis coming into West Marine unloading were gonna go down, whatever that side
The
street is.
adjacent road,
Right.
yeah.
And, the whole thing is that developer said, no trucks on the road. Again, it was just, it's just an effort to try to keep any additional traffic off the roads.
Understood.
And I wanted to clarify to keep me and Mr. Tominello in good graces. We have worked with Macomb County already previously with Robert Bush, and that is why we eliminated the entrances off of Jefferson. Not that we couldn't have entrances off of Jefferson, but if we did put them, we had to have passing and deceleration lanes, which would have cut into the neighbors' yards on Jefferson pretty heavily. So putting myself in that position, I didn't want to be the guy that went into there and said, hey, I'm taking half your front yard away. As far as the left turn, right turn, I think the traffic flows have a lot to do with what Macomb County is going to allow us to do. We have eliminated any approaches on Jefferson, and I believe we eliminated approaches on Pontchartrain and Lance Cruz so that people coming out of the condos would have more room to line up to turn onto Jefferson before they got there. I do think that if we put signs up saying no right turn, that we're looking for more congestion going out onto Jefferson rather than 3 cars going to the left, 1 car going to the right. And I agree that Lance Cruz is more of a thoroughfare than Pontchartrain is. There's really only one building being built on Pontchartrain, so what we did do to alleviate some of this stuff is we had a road that went straight through the development from Lance Cruz to Pontchartrain. We eliminated that approach, so it wasn't convenient for people to pull up to Jefferson and say, oh, there's 4 cars in front of me, I'm just gonna buzz through the condo complex and go out Pontchartrain. So we addressed that, and we've been working with Macomb County for the traffic scenario, and along with the water retention. We have probably 3 times the amount of green space in our development that they had when the administration building was there. So a lot of that stuff is working, and I believe the township engineer is also looking at the same things and telling us that the capacities and everything.
Can I just make a comment real quickly? First of all, Lance Cruz is a racetrack. People go down that street like it's 16 Mile Road, which I know we've got a problem with that. I've been on that corner for 30 years. I was there when the administration building was there and when the child care center was there. And I don't think there was ever a problem with traffic flow going left or right into Lance Cruz coming out of the administration building. And I think you would have had a lot more traffic at certain times of the day coming out of those two particular buildings than you would have out of this complex. So just being on that corner for the last 30 years and noticing the traffic patterns, like I said, I'm more concerned about the speed going down Lance Cruz, whether or not somebody's going left or right coming out of the parking lot.
Right. I know originally when Lance Cruz was repaved, there was a conscious decision by the Department of Roads not to stripe a center line because, you know, speeding is a combination, at the risk of going off, you know, to a different thing. Speeding is a combination of willful and subconscious behavior. Some people just don't care. But the majority of people who speed are just thinking of something else, and I don't want to call it aloofness, but some of the things that cause us to speed would be the width of a road, the amount of shoulder that we have, whether there's residential properties versus nothing there. And in fact, one of those things is a striped road, because it subconsciously to the person who may be unaware that they're speeding, that stripe kind of lends them to think that they're in a again, a thoroughfare compared to a local road. So, but separate conversation, so further board comment, or is there a motion?
Is it appropriate for me to ask a question of Mr. Holzbeck?
Absolutely, yeah, so we
I'm just
typically,
kinda
yep.
curious
And if
how-
you do answer, we just ask that you go to the podium so that folks can hear it.
I'm not on the planning commission, and I'm sure you've addressed it with them, but just for public knowledge, how many of these similar type developments has your company done over the years?
We're unique where we have built probably 5 or 6 condominium projects. We do residential housing and commercial and medical developments. So we don't specialize in just one multiple thing. So as far as condo projects, probably about 5.
And you guys have been around since the 80s or something? Is that what I was reading?
This will be 67 years. We're third generation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I've done research on his company and they've got a good reputation.
I've found the same. Any other discussion, or is there a motion?
Well, I think that I had the privy to go to all the planning commission meetings, and I'm sure Mr. Tominello can agree that there was plenty of discussion. And I think pretty much everything that could be hashed out at that level for the conditional rezoning was pretty much done. So if I'm going to make a motion on this project going forward, do I have to list all of the property?
Nope, you just, to approve the conditional, yeah, I mean, I've read the motion into record, yeah.
Much longer motion than.
No, yep, you can, if you're comfortable making that motion, you can just, yeah, you can say that you're comfortable, you could just announce that.
I will make that motion based on the information that Mr. Verkest gave in terms of parcel numbers on
Yep.
that particular piece of property.
Yeah, no problem. Is there support?
Support.
I've got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Badkins to approve this conditional rezoning of these 3 addresses, multiple parcels as discussed. We've had a fair amount of discussion. I don't know if, at this
And
point.
if I can just mention one more thing before we take a roll call vote, I did receive the same letter that Mr. Badkins got. I'm sure most of the trustees received the same ones, and I have confidence that the developer will work within those guidelines to try to do some of the different things that they had asked for. They had asked for maybe possibly play equipment for kids, if there's things along that line. And I'm confident with the reputation that I know that he has from seeing his work in the past, that I think he'll be receptive to working with the community.
Agreed.
You know, Mr. Verkest, could we add that subject to the attorney's comments on that motion too?
Yeah, right, because you had indicated, so that for the minutes to reflect that, I think that's a good idea. Are you comfortable with that amendment?
Yep.
Continued support, Mr. Badkins?
Yes.
So, So the motion would be, including, attorney's comments regarding rentals and language specific to that, so that's good. Further board comment? We had some, we certainly will come back to that, but knowing that there is interest for public comment, we'll open the floor at this time for public comment.
Hi, my name is Mike Wyatt. I live at 26931 Pontchartrain. I have three main issues with this development. First of all, the road situation. That's really alarming. Originally, and that was an administration building, all that traffic went out onto Lons Cruz. Didn't go out onto Pontchartrain. Pontchartrain is a residential street. It's also, as it's noted in our master plan, one of those streets that's deteriorated. It's also got drainage problems. Adding this extra traffic down Pontchartrain Street is really going to end up being a problem. Now, our master plan does turn around and talk about this type of stuff. And if I could find it right here. It mentions here that there should be a separate established single-family and two-family residential areas from other incompatible uses and uses of greater intensity. Now, this condo is a use of greater intensity. It's going to probably create 336 vehicle trips a day. My main concern is I don't want those vehicle trips going down Pontchartrain Street. Fastest route to I-94 right now, if cars were to go out onto Pontchartrain Street, would not be to go down Jefferson. And I'm sorry, but if you put a sign there, I don't think you're going to get people that are going to listen to it. What you're going to end up seeing is rather than people turning down Jefferson, they're going to make a turn and go down Pontchartrain Street. Pontchartrain Street goes down to Acadia and then right onto 16 Mile. If they have to go in the other direction, which I doubt very much that they're going to do because traffic's going to get stopped at Jefferson, it's easier to go the other way. I think what's going to end up happening is people just aren't going to want to turn around going down Jefferson to Crocker, 16 Mile, take the big loop around 16 Mile, and then get onto I-94. My suggestion would be to really eliminate the driveways onto Pontchartrain Street. When it was an administration building there weren't driveways onto Pontchartrain Street. They went on onto Lons Cruz, which is the type of street that should be handled. Type of a residential street, really should. Another issue is with the condos being rented, and that's also brought up in our master plan. It's listed in there that it's important that makes the residents. Oh, I'm sorry. It says there's a provision in there which says which should maintain the primary owner occupant character of the community. I think myself that it's more important to have somebody that's living there own the property. I think that owning the property also gives you an involvement in your homeowners association. It'll give them a say-so in what goes on in that development. And I don't see the real need to turn around to lease or rent out this property. There's not really a need for it. Unless somebody can tell me what the big need would be for it, I'd be willing to listen to it. Also in our, we were just talking about the drainage situation, putting in a retention pond. If if that's the way that's gonna go there, that's fine, but, our master plan does bring up rain gardens for this kind of thing. When I first started reading about that, I kinda, rain garden, But, you know what, if you really sit and you think about it, it might be an avenue to look at. First of all, you're gonna end up with something where you're not gonna have to put a chain link fence around it so that you're not gonna be concerned about kids getting off into this water that's out there. I think it's a better way to go about this. It'll improve the aesthetics of the neighborhood. It'll improve the safety of the neighborhood. It'll naturally absorb the water into the ground rather than putting it out into the ditches. It'll alleviate some of that water runoff into the ditches. Frankly, we were just talking about Lake St. Clair and the pollution going into it. It would be much better for that also. I don't know if the board has any questions for me.
We typically don't engage in back and forth behavior or discussion during public comment, so we will address comments, but
I know,
to avoid a kind of an argumentative thing, the answer is no, we won't.
That's another thought too. Public comment, maybe what we should really have here is public discussion. I think that would be a much better route for doing this kind of thing. That's my opinion on this. I understand the fact that a lot of people get pretty worked up over this stuff. I get worked up too. But I don't think that, anything gets resolved by screaming or yelling either. But if we can have dialogue or discussion between residents and developer, discussion between, developer residents and our trustees, our planning commission, if we can have open dialogue in that kind of a manner, I think that we could end up with something where a lot of people would be really pleased with. But you know what, if the residents can't get involved in that aspect, then, they kind of, they just don't feel like like they heard, what they're saying was heard. I'm sure you can kind of relate or understand what I'm saying. At any rate, I'll just conclude it there. I would like to mention one last thing. I would like to further have some dialogue with our planning commission, our trustees regarding this. If I don't bring up something, you guys won't know that there's a concern or there's a problem. So hopefully, if I can bring this kind of stuff up to you guys, hopefully you'll take some consideration and some careful thought into it. That's it. Thanks.
Mr. Supervisor, can I just make one comment, not a back and forth just situation? Sure. Mr. Wyatt, I was impressed with the letter that you wrote.
Thank you.
I tried to write you back. I tried to respond back to you because I thought your points were well taken, and I respect your opinion on those type of things. And I know you want to see what's best for the community, and we understand that. So I do want to thank you for writing those letters to the Board of Trustees because they were taking them to heart, and I respected the way that you handled yourself and the way that you wrote those letters. So thank you for that.
Well, I will have to make a comment to that. I did send an email to Mr. Tominello. I'm sorry, I didn't. But I did hear Mr. Verkest had sent it over to you, so I know you did get it. But anyhow, I want to really thank each and every one of you for the replies. I wasn't sure what to expect. I wasn't sure whether I'd get any reply at all. But actually, each and every one of you gave me a reply. Each and every one of you also encouraged me to get involved with our process here, which I thought was very thoughtful too.
And I think I mentioned, it's gonna be some time before it comes to the board for us to vote on it. had no idea it was gonna be this quick.
Well, because the
I thought it was gonna
rezoning
be a
comes
while.
before, right, yeah, understood.
I thought it was gonna be a little while before it was here already, so.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was also a comment made about.
Well, and we're kinda getting away from what we normally do. We really don't wanna
Sorry,
get
go
into,
ahead.
I just,
Go ahead.
because it can deteriorate. And,
No, go
and I'm trying to be, yeah, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Linda Brozovic. I live at 26861 Pontchartrain, and I have lived there for 60-plus years. I went to school in that Jefferson Elementary, as we were talking before. A couple concerns that I have. Once we change this rezoning to multifamily, it will never, ever go back. I know that Lance Cruz is a secondary road. The county just paid to have their road, and it's nice and smooth and pretty and has a line that goes down it. Pontchartrain is old riverbed. It's sinking. We can't handle any more traffic down Pontchartrain. We can hardly get our cars down. And when it was nice, everybody went down Lance Cruz and didn't want to make the left-hand turn from, didn't want to make the left turn from Lance Cruz onto Jefferson, so they came down Acacia and went right down Pontchartrain, speeding down, and now we got to worry about our kids. It's just not a good idea to add 60 cars to a road that can't even handle what's there now. I took offense last planning commission when you told us that our homes were ghetto, and that we had boats and RVs parked and whatever. I don't know what street you went down, but it wasn't Pontchartrain. We have custom-built homes on half-acre lots. It's a park-like setting. When you do your beautification committee and you come down our street, you will see almost every house has Christmas lights on it, because we care about our neighborhood. We care about one another. My concern with the condos is that 20 years from now, and I will probably not be alive, but 20 years from now, condos become old buildings. Neighborhoods with houses and R1, where they're single homes, I have watched our neighborhood transition and change 3 and 4 times. And each new owner improves, adds on, takes care of, and it regenerates, and the neighborhood continues to go. I don't see that in the condo complexes and the apartments that we have in this town. I think that's almost everything that I have to say on it. But I wish you would really seriously take into consideration on that. But the traffic is the number one issue, that it's going to ruin our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Meyer, 26620 Pontchartrain, and I support the comments that Mr. Wyatt made about the drainage and about the traffic, and the comments about the fact that they're going to have entrances on Lance Cruz. I can guarantee you the people that are coming home at night, coming off of 16 Mile Road, they're not going to want to make a left-hand turn into that complex. They're coming down Pontchartrain. As to the drainage, it took me over a year to get the county to come out and fix a culvert that was collapsing, and they just kept on putting more asphalt on top of it, more asphalt on top of it. The only way I got to fix is I kept on calling every week saying, when are you going to fix this? When are you going to fix this? A comment was made, well, it's a problem. It's there from before. This developer's not causing it. But if he adds any drain water to it, it's going to just make it bigger. So, again, I support them. I support the other resident about the traffic, and the more cars down there, the road is crap now. It's only gonna get crappier. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Kevin George. Live at 26880 Pontchartrain. Pretty much agree with everything that's been said. A couple of comments I just want to make to the developer that the last meeting we were at, he did make a comment that he's going to make his money either way, whether it's a single-family residence or condos. That it'd be more beneficial for the township if it was condos. All I can figure that is tax base or something. The other issue is our traffic, everybody's been talking about. The thing is with Pontchartrain is, we have to pay for it, as residents pay for that road. That's why it's such bad shape. We can't get everybody to agree, to pay for it. People just don't have the money. So it sits the way it is. Drive down. Add this extra traffic down there, it's just gonna go to really shit. The condo complex there, frontage, I don't know, 400 or 500 feet, you know, that they would be responsible for if they had to pay for their road. But the traffic they're gonna incur on it is a heck of a lot more. I just, it'd be really nice if we just didn't have an entrance and exit on the Pontchartrain. That would really, a lot of problems. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
C. William Bardell, 26-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. I got a few comments on this. The applicant said he drove around, he saw boats on the lawn and on the road right away and cars on the grass. Again, this is a lose-lose. What we reaped, we sowed, and this is why this is happening. Our ordinance enforcement is nothing. We got guys pouring stones in the middle of the night, 5 people pouring stones on road right away to park cars and boats in the middle of the night, and this township does nothing about it. This applicant comes in, of course he wants to make a nickel. Of course. He said the area is not good for residential. Well, shame on us. Shame on us, we didn't have ordinance enforcement, so he's coming in here and making a buck. Yeah, I can't blame him for making a buck. Ogiati, he said he does good work on his cement. Oh, okay, I can't believe he put 21 AA down. This is what happens when you don't enforce the ordinances. This is exactly what we reaped, we sowed. What we sowed, we reaped. And this is what we got. That's what we got. This is what we get. Want to park the boat on your front lawn? You want to put on stones and park cars all over your lawn? You get condos, you get multifamily, and it's happening. We don't have enough multifamily in Harrison Township. We got all the multifamily in Harrison Township and not the residential. And we got guys driving around that won't write deer tags for people not following the rules. Okay? That's what we got. And this is what we got. We got it, and it was a long time coming, and this is what we got. Because you guys didn't enforce the ordinances. Just like this guy's going to talk about his wall. They came in the middle of the night. Oh, we changed it. Oh, well, there's an ordinance that's going to be changed. There's some leeway. No. This stuff happens on the weekends and the inspectors come out. He told me the story. I know what's going on here. He gets a cinder block. And this is what's going on in this township. We got a thing tomorrow where a guy wants to put a big billboard up on Executive Drive. It's going on all over this township because you people won't enforce the ordinances. They might strain their milk. You live in a new subdivision on North Point. You got a McMansion. Wake up to the real world. We don't live on the McMansions. We live on the water. We get half the house for twice the money. All right? Wake up. If those condos aren't brick and composite and thick, 3-dimensional roof, they'll be garbage in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years at the max. It all depends on how they're built and what standards you have. You don't even need 6 rentals. Everyone's moving to Florida. You see all these self-storage, all this junk. Oh, they got to move to Florida. No, everyone's not moving to Florida. People are buying junk off the internet. Made in China. We got buying junk all day long. feel-good garbage all over the place. No. We're not all moving to Florida. We not all have to have rental units in between. No, we don't. We don't have to have no rental units. We could have single family, like this lady said. The neighborhood changes. People keep fixing the house up. Another couple moves in. What have you. And you keep fixing it up. You don't have rentals. This is what we get when we don't enforce ordinances. You're seeing it happen in real time. You're seeing it. This is what you got. You don't enforce it? Call the county. They're parking on the road right away. Call the county. The county laughs and says, what township you from? Harrison Township? They laugh. They laugh about it. Call your ordinance officer.
Stop yelling. You're out of line.
They say, call your ordinance officer. It's across the board. This is what we got. This is exactly what we got because you guys will not enforce the ordinances. Thank you. That's what you got.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. I took a few notes, and I'll do the best I can to respond to some of the comments. Specific to driveways, this is a rezoning. Driveways and the placement of those driveways is going to be a part of that site plan. Mr. Tominello sits on the planning commission. The applicant is here. That discussion is ultimately likely to occur should this board approve the rezoning as a part of approving that site plan. So I'm not sure, I hear the concerns. I can certainly understand, the very road that I live on. There was a proposed development at my corner, and the very first time I ever stepped foot inside of this building was because they proposed putting a driveway onto my residential road, and I said, I think that's a bad idea, so I came to public comment. So I believe any reasonable person, certainly I think we've got a board that hears your concerns, but that is going to be best addressed should this be approved as a part of that site plan. Number two, someone mentioned ownership is better. We agree. It's the very reason that when we look at this site, we might consider conditional rezoning because we can have the influence to say, well, listen, we might consider some way of restricting rentals. It would be difficult for us to consider conditions that completely eliminated rentals, for the very reason that each of you and all of us have the ability to rent our home for whatever reason. The reality is, at some point in your lives, you may have a such scenario or a situation where it's your right, it's your opportunity. So we don't say to any of you that you can't rent your home. We are considering conditions saying we're going to limit the amount of rentals. By doing so, we're saying this site doesn't become something where we have transient residents. So I do think we're considering that. I don't know that it would be reasonable or feasible to say that there's zero rentals because we all have that right, but we hope that a majority of our neighbors don't rent their homes because it would change the flavor of our neighborhood. Again, addressing drainage. Rain gardens are something we encourage. Green infrastructure is something we encourage. There are specific rules dictated ultimately from the EPA down to the state and county level regarding stormwater management. And we've adopted and we encourage things like rain gardens, green space. It would be virtually impossible to develop that site without some sort of stormwater detention. Again, what that looks like is going to be a combination of county resources, because Public Works has oversight on that. Water quality, the very purpose of that detention is so that when you have a wet weather event, it flows into a pond. There's a process of constructing that pond so that you might have an overflow pipe so that it can only flow a certain amount of water off of that site and into the rest of the stormwater system so that the water has a chance to settle, it has a chance to filter through natural means inside of that pond. the reality is, when we drive around in our township and really any of our communities, my street doesn't have stormwater detention. It flows down the street, goes into a creek that goes right out to the river or the lake. But those neighborhoods that have been built since that do have detention of some kind to minimize the rapid flow of water out. But a rain garden couldn't handle the numerical calculation for that site. So we encourage it, and it's a part of that process. Planning Commission has that oversight. We're not considering stormwater or rain gardens here. That is another agent, another body in the process. And Planning Commission has some influence, but ultimately it falls on the county through rules dictated by the state that ultimately come from the Clean Water Act. Public discussion as opposed to public comment. The reality is, we see public comment at our meetings. We're here to vote. We're here to take action as a deliberating body. And we do so publicly. And we open up the floor. Most of you go to work somewhere and the public isn't allowed to go to McDonald's and sit in at their meeting and say, well, why aren't you guys, raising the price on the Big Mac? We do things out in the open. We meet here every 2 weeks for 2 hours, 3 hours. But in between, you can call any one of us. I mean, trustees maybe might have more limited hours, but you can email us. So that public discussion can occur any time. And it can occur to a certain extent here, but our primary purpose is, this is in essence a business meeting. But you can come see me, I'll come to your house, I'll give you my cell phone, we can meet anytime. So we can engage in that in that discussion, but it isn't always necessarily efficient. And to that point, we saw it here during public comment. It's instinctive for us to want to communicate and go back and forth. It's just how we communicate as human beings. But sometimes we lose sight of the fact that really we're just doing the business of the township in a fishbowl right now. And there's a chance for you to come and comment, and it's good because you get to say, hey, have you considered this? Or before you act on this, did you know this bit of information? We have a very liberal public comment policy. Some boards only allow public comment at the beginning or the end of a meeting. We open it multiple times throughout the meeting, anytime, before we take action, but when we take a motion, or when we make a motion. So it is instinctive, we saw that, but what we find is if we engage in back and forth discussion, sometimes the meeting deteriorates, and depending on the subject matter, people can shout, and we get off track, and we lose some of the things that we know we should try to do in the way we treat each other. I don't think there's a board member here that disagrees with the concept that, given a choice, if you give me a vacant parcel of land in the township and you said, what could you have? I'm comfortable in saying my first choice is single family. I can tell you that this parcel has been, or these parcels have been for sale for an extended period of time. And I can also tell you that the decision to sell this property is really originally with the school board. I've had conversation with school board members. And without getting into specifics, I think they've tried to do their best to sell this. They have a responsibility. It's their it's our money. This property is ours. It's public property until it's sold. But the reality is, multiple people have come, sat down, and said, hey, we're proposing this, we're proposing that. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? I'm just looking at it. Haven't really made a commitment yet. I haven't encountered someone who's come to see me about these parcels that felt that they could be profitable building single-family homes on the site. I'm not a developer. I don't know that. I can't speak to that. I can't say they're right or wrong. But the proposals that we've had have been about things like this. And I don't want to say worse, but things like this are things that would be less palatable. But no one's come to me saying I can make money with single-family homes on that site. So sometimes in this process, we agree to things that we say, well, this isn't exactly what I wanted, but it's better than what I could be facing, because this process can look different. If someone comes to us and says, well, I want to do X on that property, and we say, well, that's ridiculous, we say no. Oftentimes, and we don't see it much in Harrison Township because we're largely built out, but in our neighboring communities, and I have these conversations with my peers, when you say no to a proposal that we might not quite like, it's better than the alternative, But when we say no to that, sometimes we end up in litigation, or our peers end up in litigation, and we're forced to accept something that might be more profitable and less palatable to what we want as a community. So the notion of having condos there, I understand. I mean, I'm not sitting in this room listening saying, well, you guys are crazy or I disagree. But sometimes we're making decisions on things saying, well, this is better than what we could be facing or looking at there. Or, hey, what is the density? Well, ultimately, the original proposal was at one density. The buyer of the property and potential developer saying, well, okay, I could agree to this level of density. I'm willing to make these kinds of adjustments. This isn't, in my opinion, as one board member, this isn't a home run, and I don't blame you for saying, hey, we'd like this. I don't blame you for saying, hey, we'd like to avoid driveways. The driveway conversation is going to occur, if this is approved, at the planning commission level. So I'll throw Mr. Tominello under the bus on that one. But the reality is, I think this is still a better way of developing this property than what we could be looking at. And I don't know, like I say, I get it. There's the challenges with drainage, the challenges with repaving your road. Those aren't specific to this in my eyes. We can apply for grants if the folks on your street say, hey, we're contemplating repaving our road. We can work to try to help that. We can work on drainage. We can work on those things. But the reality is the county cannot pay more than 50%. By state law, the county cannot pay for more than 50% of the cost to repave your road because it's a local road. They did Lance Cruz because they treat Lance Cruz differently. Lance Cruz is a collector road or a thoroughfare. They have a whole series of names. I don't remember which one it is, but it's not a local residential road. Those were the comments that I had from the notes that I took to try to respond to some of the comments. I don't know if there's a further board comment. If there's no further board comment, we do have a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Badkins to approve the rezoning, conditional rezoning of these three addresses per the recommendation of the Planning Commission and subject to the comments of the attorney regarding rentals. I'll ask the acting clerk to take, or this does require a roll call vote.
Mr. Badkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt excused, Mr. Burkess?
Yes. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda is specific to changes to our ordinance. So let me find that. Bear with me. Page 132. The Planning Commission has been working on the proposed zoning ordinance amendments that cover a number of areas, including outdoor dining provisions, requirements for the storage of boats, amendments to the waterfront fencing requirements, and regulations regarding shipping containers that might be used as accessory buildings. In essence, what we commonly refer to as perfecting amendments. At this meeting, the board would be introducing amendments to our ordinances with the final ordinance subject to any proposed modifications from the board that would be brought back before a future meeting for adoption. The proposed recommendation or proposed motion is to introduce an ordinance to amend Articles 21, 14, 17, 11, 9, 5, and 6 of the Charter Township of Harrison zoning ordinance to amend the outdoor dining provisions, to clarify requirements for the storage of boats, to amend the waterfront fencing requirements, and create regulations regarding shipping containers used as accessory buildings, with repealer, severability, and effective date, and to publish a notice of introduction at the Charter Township of Harrison, and that the full text may be reviewed in the clerk's office during business hours from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So that's the proposed motion. There's a lot of information there, and I was going to reach out to you on the one issue.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we can have some discussion. But I'll make a motion to introduce the ordinance as presented, with the exception of 6.01 B10 waterfront fencing, I would like to eliminate that section and approve the introduction of the other perfecting amendments as written. And with that, I'd be asking for a second, and we can go into discussion.
I'll support that.
Okay, so so I see. So we got a motion by Mr. Tominello, support by Mr. Brado. I guess I'm seeing, is it 4A? So specifically, only not the verbiage that you're looking to exclude, would be waterfront fencing located in a yard abutting water shall be permitted as follows. Only non-obscuring.
6.01, yep.
And it's, so I see it specifically as
Actually,
4A.
on page 5 and 6.
Well, or in the board packet, it's
Okay.
page 138.
Okay.
Does that sound right? The top of page 138, or, I mean, just to make sure, for clarification, what you're talking about. This is the, maximum of 4 feet high measured from grade, fences, walls, and hedgerows, and protective barriers not greater than 2 feet in height, measured from grade are exempt from this non-obscuring requirement. That was the one that you had felt can you go back and talk about? 4A. Yep.
Yep.
Is that understood? Does everybody understand?
And number 10 as well, but we would look at the whole section.
Okay.
So that's the one
And number 10 as well.
Yes.
So 4A and 10 of, section 6.01B.
Yes, we'll pull the whole thing. It's easier to bring it back.
Just pull the whole
Yeah,
B. Just pull that
exactly.
whole thing about fencing.
Yes.
Is that understood?
Yeah.
Continued
Support,
support?
yep.
And is it clear to the board members what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't want to, so, we might call it the Cook Amendment. So, we have a motion with support, discussion, board members, I don't know if there is discussion.
I have a question, just what was the thinking behind the boat one? I guess it's, outdoor dining, just after that, page 135.
Okay.
Number 7, accessory uses in buildings with the following restrictions: outdoor storage of recreational boats on the paved, off-street parking surface, provided further that no parking lot should be occupied by stored boats beginning the Friday before Memorial Day through Labor Day.
So, yeah, I can surely,
Marinas, yeah.
I can surely answer that. So, before, basically what the ordinance talked about, it talked about the dry season and the wet season, and there really were no definitive dates.
Okay.
So what we did is we wanted to put definitive dates. It makes it easier for our ordinance officers, when boats have to be moved into the water to allow for parking, and then vice versa.
And this is primarily addressing commercial marinas.
Yes.
Right. So the notion being that, hey, for a certain part of the year, I'm just gonna use the paved surface of my marina for storage, for dry storage of boats during the winter months. We don't want them there in the summer months.
Right, because it's parking, and that's how parking was derived as far as the numbers, capacity.
Okay, thank you.
Other discussion? Hearing no discussion and seeing no public comment, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Brado to introduce these ordinance amendments, with specifically omitting the issues, specific to the fencing, that I believe was on page 138. Just really that entire 6.01B, as I understand it.
That's
Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. My notes say this requires a roll call vote.
Mr. Badkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt excused, and Mr. Burkess?
Yes. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda, item H1 from the Treasurer's Office.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and I wanted to just provide the quarterly report. You've heard me talk about it before. I did implement an annual report. This was my follow-up to come up with a Treasurer's Quarterly Investment Income Report in accordance with conditions established in Public Act 20. Annual Treasurer's Report is recommended. And then in addition, the treasurer must report quarterly investment activity. So, as you know, I've been investing quite successfully with the interest rates going up naturally, and we've been very successful with our investments. So actually, the attachment that you have, I've included the quarterly reports for investment income from Q1 through Q3. We have not completed Q4 yet. I wanted to present this to the board, ask if there's any questions, and then what this will do is this will be on our agenda every quarter, and we'll go over that quarter's income report. It's going to talk about our investment income, the amount we make each quarter, the unrealized loss and gain, and I also included as part of the report is the special assessment interest income. So, you know, special assessments, we've got almost $1 million that we're acting as a bank on for our special assessments. So I felt it appropriate to add the special assessments because that is income as far as interest income to the township. So with that said, I'd be looking if there's any questions on the report.
Give me the bottom line. How would we done?
Well, sure.
There's a lot
So
of numbers here.
So through quarter three, just give me a minute here.
Yep.
So through quarter three, we've actually made around, with the unrealized gains and losses, around 24,880
Okay.
in interest so far.
In 3 quarters.
Yep. in
And
three
that includes SAD interest?
No, with SAD, it brings us up to around 25,000, but what you have to keep in mind with SADs are typically paid the fourth quarter of the year because we
Gotcha.
only collect once a year.
I see.
So this number is gonna go up substantially for the fourth quarter.
Cool.
Yeah, we've done very well, and just as a reminder, if you recall my annual report, we were making approximately, before investment started and we started managing and maintaining the investments, we were making approximately $35 in interest a quarter. So we were making just over $100 a year on over $5 million of funds.
This is better.
Yep, and right now I'm investing $5,673 in funds, and that does not include the $1 million, or close to $1 million in special assessments.
Okay.
Okay?
Where does that surplus go?
That goes into the general fund.
That's, now, having said that, is, like if it's water and sewer, it goes to water and sewer?
That is correct. So if you look at the, and that's a
If
good
it's
question,
library, it goes to
Mrs.
library.
Rose. If you look at the little shaded box on my Q3 2022 report, there's, I believe, 7 funds there: general fund, police fund, library fund, ARPA, public works, water and sewer, and SA debt services. So there's portions of all those funds that make up that $5.6 million. So when we make the interest on those will be vetted out, and the proper percentage based on the investment from that fund will return to that fund.
But it would be into the general fund of
Yes.
each of those
Into
specific
the-
funds.
into those
It's
different
just
funds.
revenue,
Right.
treated as revenue.
So good stuff. We haven't seen, I know it's not good if you're buying a car, but for the township, and it's more interest that we've gotten in quite a long time.
All right. Any questions?
So are you willing to do this on the side for us board members? I mean,
Well, I-
personal level, that'd be fine by me.
Oh, the reality is there's more, like some of the things that we've put into trusts, there are rules. The treasurer, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're more restricted on these monies than, say, like our, retiree health care, or pension funds, things like that.
Exactly, yeah. But Public Act 20 really restricts us to go into a little bit lower interest rate, way low risk, as far as investing. If I was investing for myself, I'd probably be a lot more riskier and probably make, not a lot more money, but more, but
Yeah,
we're
and-
restricted, and it's because, we don't want to have a failure.
Sure. In our pension funds, we have to assume a rate of return. I think we're at 6.5, 6.75. Over the long haul, we beat that number, but, for example, this year, it's not quite so pretty. But prior years have been pretty good, to where when you spread that out over a period of time, we beat that return, so.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the investments? I don't believe we have to take any action, so,
Just receive and file.
okay, we can make, I mean, if you want,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to receive and file.
okay, is there support? Support. I've got a motion by Mr. Tominello, support by Mr. Badkins to receive and file the report. Discussions? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda is item I-1, regarding PA 152. Public Act 152 requires that municipalities annually opt out of the requirements of the act. Otherwise, certain mandatory employee health care provisions must be implemented. The employee health care plan negotiated in our collective bargaining agreements is the same for all employees. It meets the IRS guidelines of a high deductible plan. It does not meet the requirements of PA 152. Therefore, I'm recommending the same thing we've done, I believe, since 2012, that we opt out of PA 152 for 2023.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
And a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. We have a healthcare plan that has a little bit more consumerism in it, which we believe, as opposed to requiring a payment, a premium participation, instead we participate on a deductible, with the thought that each employee, now when they're paying, they're, paying with their own funds and might make a choice specific to that. We think in the long run that keeps our premiums a little lower, so that's why we've gone in this direction for the last approximately 10 years. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is I-2, regarding resolutions. Board members, at our February 8th, 2021 regular board meeting, we adopted a policy that the salaries of the 3 full-time officials will be increased annually by the inflation rate multiplier, which is based on the U.S. Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics data, effective January 1st of each year. In the board packets is the most recent inflation rate multiplier, which comes from the State Tax Commission, driven by our state treasurer. The bulletin shows an increase of 5% for 2023. Inflation during the period was actually calculated at 7.9%, but per state law, it is capped at a maximum of 5%. This is in essence the bulletin used to determine how much our taxable value goes up. So your home could have gone up 10% in assessed value, but your taxable value only goes up the rate of inflation or 5%, whatever, is lower. So the policy would dictate that the increase for the 3 full-time elected officials would be at 2%. Would be at 5%. But our AFSCME and GELC labor contracts have a 2% increase for 2023. Therefore, I recommend the adoption of the 3 attached resolutions, which will increase the salary of each full-time elected official by 2%, or $1,653 to $84,293 annual salary, effective January 1st, 2023. Board members, we've struggled with this, and so have prior boards, and so do our peers, in determining how to treat compensation fairly. And it's not an easy subject to talk about, but I do believe this is a reasonable increase, and it's reflective of what our union employees are getting. So there are 3 separate resolutions incorporated in here that we've used in the past when we've addressed this subject. We're allowed to make a motion to adopt 3 resolutions if we choose to, correct? All three are equal. Yes, sir.
So just for a point of clarification, it says, therefore I recommend the 2% of 1,653.
Mm-hmm.
And down below it says the adoption for each resolution increasing by 2640 effective January 1st, 2022.
Uh-oh.
Well, I just made that change.
I copied and pasted. I'm sorry. So it is clearly, so the resolution says 1653. So this is one of those where you pull it up from last year and copy and paste, and I missed. So the recommendation should be 1653. The resolutions, adopting the resolutions is ultimately the action, so that was the number from the previous year,
So 1653.
1653. Yeah, no, that looks a little bad, but the resolutions are right, and
Effective
the language up
2023.
top is right, I just missed that. So, good catch. Any discussion about that? Any other discussion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt all three resolutions, increasing the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer's salary by $1,653, effective January 1st, 2023.
Okay, yeah, that's right, too, because it says 20, I missed that whole section. Is there support?
I'll support.
The policy that we adopt does address the specific increases for deputies, for bus drivers, part-time. That policy is reflective of a 5% raise, because that's a policy we have. It doesn't require board action, but as a matter of disclosure, the other positions have through policy that same verbiage that it's based on, basically inflation, so. But it doesn't require resolution. State law says that if you're gonna change the salary or pay for any elected person, it has to be done by resolution. So we do have a motion by Mr. Batkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. Is there any discussion?
No, I just wanted to make sure that people understood that this is something we discussed a couple of years back. It happens on every year based on the cost of living or any type of, whatever type of formula, but when the trustees were voted in, we felt that it was, a couple of us were new, it wasn't right for us to be included in this, so that'll be something that will be addressed next year, before the election next year, and then people can make their decisions based on that. But, for the three full-timers that put in a lot more time than we do, I think it's a fair resolution.
Yeah, it's hard. It's not an easy subject to talk about. You know, you'd like to think, I get to, do that, but it's, it's a
way it has to
challenge.
be done.
That's right.
No choice.
Yeah, so, any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, this does recall, because it's a resolution, adoption of a resolution, it does require a roll call, so I'll ask the acting clerk to take a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, excused. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda, item I3, regarding our trades inspectors. We do have our building inspector and our ordinance officer, which is also a building inspector. Those are full-time positions per the union, but as we've seen, the demand kind of be reduced. Our plumbing, mechanical, and electrical inspectors are all part-time positions. They're not in the bargaining unit, so it's just an hourly rate with no benefits or any other type of compensation. Our three trades inspectors received no fringe benefits. They received a $1 per hour increase at the beginning of 2022. It is my recommendation to increase the hourly rate for the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing inspectors from $33 to $34 per hour, effective January 1, 2023, with an approximate annual cost of about $1,500.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
I'll support that motion.
All right, got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Olgiati. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is administration fees. Board members, the general fund collects administrative fees from the various other funds that it supports. We also charge rental fees to some other funds that utilize properties owned by the general fund. The police mini station is owned by the general fund, and we currently collect $30,000 for rent. The library is located in general fund property as well. We currently collect $10,000 annually. I am proposing that we increase both of these for 2023 to $36,000 for the police mini station and $18,000 for the library. Keep in mind that these, as we discussed in the budget workshop, there's really two components. So the general fund collects the library millage. The general fund collects the police millage. The general fund handles payroll for the library. They handle accounts payable for each of these. So the notion is that the general fund, as a structure, supports each of these, and, we collect a much larger administrative fee for the fire department, because we provide greater services, as well as the Water and Sewer Fund, which is its own independent enterprise fund. Even at $18,000, we're probably still giving a deal to the library, and although it looks like an 80% increase, it's really $8,000 annually. But we're trying to move in a direction where it's a reasonable number. Our auditors have encouraged us to have some backup information to justify these, and our accounting office is working on that for 2023. But I am recommending that we increase the rent and administration fee for the library to $18,000 annually, and to increase the rent and administration fee for the police mini station to $36,000 annually, effective January 1st, 2023.
I'll support that.
Or make that motion, yeah?
I'll
Okay.
make that motion, I'm sorry.
All right, that's
I thought
okay.
you just made it.
No, I don't make them. Is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Brado, a support by Mr. Badkins. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. And that brings us to item J, which is public comments. So we'll open the floor for public comments. They can be about any subject you wish, and we ask that you try to limit those to 5 minutes in length.
Yes, Joe Cook, 50-year resident, Harrison Township. First of all, I want to just express my appreciation for your consideration on the fencing amendment. Secondarily, I mean, the zoning board ruled that this wall should come down. Yeah, I think it was January 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And the wall is still there. Now, there was a hearing scheduled for November 23rd, where it was on the docket, it was ready to go in front of the judge. And it was dismissed at the last minute because it was ruled that the wall was in compliance, which it clearly wasn't. So I guess my only question, my only concern is, and I realize this is difficult. It's much harder once something's up to make it go away. I fully appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody's help on this. But I just hope we can find some solution to this, to be able to eliminate this structure that clearly shouldn't be there, is clearly an eyesore, is a clearly violation of at least two ordinances. So again, I appreciate your help on this, and I hope we can find a solution to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
C. William Bardell, 26-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. Clean up, fix up, people helping people. Just want everyone to please come on out, check out Save Lake St. Clair on Facebook, hit follow, keep up to date on what's going on. Again, two steps forward, one step back. It's a slog, it's a fight, it's a slow moving thing. And I'm optimistic, with in our federal system and in our state houses on all three branches that the blue team can indeed, who historically has cared more about the environment than the red team, we can get something going here. Some results once and for all on our wonderful lake. And with that, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Stay safe. Stay safe out on the ice. Make sure you wear your foul weather gear and use the buddy system when you're out there ice fishing. Thank you. Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. Any board comments? I'll just
Well, I
say,
wish everybody a happy holiday.
absolutely, on behalf, I'm sure, of all of you, we wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and this is our last meeting for the year, so we'll hopefully have a good holiday season, and we'll see you in January. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Tominello, a support by Mr. Olgiati. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.
Have you been by Glenmar Woods? You seen the Christmas lights in that neighborhood?
No, is that where Dr. Bender is? Glenmore Woods? Is that between,
The one that's on Coleridge.
between Coleridge and Metro Parkway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, you should see the lights.
What's
They hire pros.
Did you? Where'd you
Yeah,
go?
I was talking to someone today, they said, yeah, I think the first 10 houses where they.
Okay,
all got
we're
together.
leaving